Okay, thank you for it, and good morning, everybody. When I was putting this together, I was reflecting how long it had been that I've been involved in Bonus, and indeed its forerunner, BIREMA, and I seem to spend a good part of the last 12 years or so looking at this. One thing I didn't put on that, and just to show my enthusiasm for Bonus, is that I'm on 3 national marine committees in the UK advising ministers, and one of the things I've been doing is trying to promote the idea of a Baltic North Sea bonus. But I'm afraid, like some of my other ideas about UK-European cooperation, it's falling on deaf ears. But I'll keep trying. Okay, a lot of this work was done by my colleague, one of my staff, Steve Barnard, and I. But I don't want to go into a huge amount of the detail just because of the time. But what I want to do is get to some of the main messages on how a project like Bonus has been used or can be used by society and is actually meeting the challenges. And I guess one of the things that we're all thinking about is how you get from this very precise science that's being done in order to a value for society. Sort of what does society make of things like this? So what we were asked to do, and what we agreed with Bonus to do, was to try and do an overview, an impartial and objective, but I hope as scientists we're always impartial and objective, of the success of the programmes, to provide insight into future developments. We weren't asked, although this would have been a very nice activity, we weren't asked to examine, go through each programme, and look at its development or management or delivery. But despite not being able to do that, I look back at some of the programs and I thought, well, what did we say, or what did the program proposers say when they started? And this is a program, I don't know if there's anyone from who was involved in Bonus Miracle here, but it's a program that is particularly close to my heart, and I like the program, so I thought I would use it. And this is what those red things, the things that it said it would do. Now, I'm not going to go back and tell you, did it reach those things, although it is actually embedded in the analysis, and so is the others. But you'll see the sort of things that researchers say they're going to do at the beginning, and then the challenge is to say they did it there. So what we wanted to do was look at how well did the Bonus projects meet the challenges that Bonus had set, the 11 Bonus challenges, to look at the wider scope, how did the projects meet the wider scope of the program, and look at some selected metrics. I think they're called statistics normally, well, in Bonus, but they're really metrics. Look at selected metrics of what the projects have provided to Bonus Secretariat, to look at those. And then finally, we wanted to look at how stakeholders see the impact of Bonus. We had a set of evaluation questions, and I suspect there's quite a few people in this room that were sent those questions, and some of you answered them. We already know, as Pauline has shown, we know what the projects were. Hopefully that's big enough. So let's start the first bit, judging the projects against the challenges that Bonus set itself. So we needed an output score for this, a scoring system to try and make what in essence is qualitative information. We want to try and make it as quantitative as possible, and produce these things, and you'll see them, because you'll all see the reports, some of you had already. You produce them as heat maps, and I'm hoping that those challenges are firmly embedded on your brain, because if they're not, you shouldn't have been involved in Bonus, but I'm hoping that they were embedded on your brain. But you can see there the different, down the, where are we going? Down this side are all the projects. These are all the challenges, and this is how well they were meeting those challenges. And so you can see these and that. So what I want to do, I'll just talk you through the things we did, and then I'm going to come to the conclusions for those. How good were they at addressing the research themes? And here I've just taken to start with the Bonus Plus projects, and as you see there in the side box, the set of themes. how well did the projects address those research themes? And as you see there, some of them had a key role in addressing those themes, and some had a subsidiary role. But it does show that some of the projects were really hitting the market across all of those, and others were just hitting one or two. And I'll come back to that in a minute. And then the final part, the bonus 185, this is the last set of projects that are just being completed now, how they were addressing the research themes. And again, you see the themes there. Now, if you know those themes, you'll start seeing how they overlap with what member states would be doing on their own and national programs would be doing. And again, I think this has just been mentioned, this overlap between those sorts of projects. But at least the main idea was we have a set of themes. How well are those themes being met by different projects there? So there is a warning, no? If a project hits many of those themes or many of those either key themes or subsidiary themes, we might think that's great. But that's not, of course, that's not the case. Some projects that will be centered on one theme and do it incredibly well, only focus on that theme, are just as valuable or even probably more valuable than those that focus on many themes there and that. And then the other thing we wanted to look at was what was the progression through the different calls. Is there a progression through them? Because if there isn't, it means we're not learning from one call to another and that. Now, the analysis is a bit complicated, but can you just take my word for it? No, trust me, I'm a doctor. Just take my word for it that there is a progression through those calls. So this is good. We do learn from these. I mean, some sectors of society don't learn, but at least we are learning in this. So the analysis did show that the ability to cover the bonus challenges did increase with successive calls. That's great. That's hopefully one of the aims in that. The next thing we said was, well, we've got a set of performance metrics or statistics that you involved in the bonus projects were submitting to the bonus secretariat. So we looked at those, but we actually grouped them into stakeholder engagement, research integration, public dissemination, and then to some of the academic links there. So we were looking at those metrics on how well you did. And again, it's very complicated, but again, you just see the heat map of this, of the way that those were met, and what sort of metrics you fulfilled. I say even stood here, I can't read it. But you get the message, the set of projects down the side, and then these metrics across the top and that. And then the final thing that we looked at was we wanted to get the information, as we say, from the horse's mouth, go to the stakeholders. So we had the three groups of stakeholders. We had the participants, the funders, and the users. And we tried to reach quite a few of these, and you'll see the number at the bottom there of how many were contacted, and the sort of response rate that we got. It wasn't as good as we hoped, but then again, you're all busy people. So we used this online questionnaire, but we did get usable information, and it was very important that the respondents were from all the countries. That was quite important. We did see differences. The participants were mainly academics, the funders were mainly government organisations, the user group were mainly policy-based workers, but at least that gave us a good indication. It would be nice to have had a much bigger sample, but you can't have everything you want in life. Coming from a Brexit country, that's certainly the case for me. So the groups, they were aware of the project, and some had very firm views about it, and others we couldn't get responses for them. Now, you can't read this, but if you picked up the policy briefing document last night, or the ones over there, you'll see this in there, and you can read them. But a lot of this was looking at the way the science had been taken up, the ease of getting the science to the users, and so on. And you see the smiley faces, mostly smiley faces. It's a small sample size in some cases, but better that than no sample size. And let's say then there's response to these statements. Has bonus contributed? Could you actually suggest that it was contributed? Now, unlike Paulina's project, this was not. She was buried in data. But we didn't have those data. We couldn't make it as quantitative as we wanted. So it's very much anecdotal, but still valuable data. That, even as a quantitative ecologist, I still think this is valuable out there. So overall, there was satisfaction with that. So let's just talk about the conclusions. And then I want to leave with a few main messages that comes from bonus, but also from other similar projects, and actually echoes some of the things that Patrice was saying earlier in that. So there is variability, but in essence, the projects met the challenges, which and this was very high, and we think it was a robust defence of those challenges, which is great. That addressing the wider scope. Well, they all did this. Now, in the report, we've used the word redundancy, and I'm regretting using the word redundancy because that sounds a bit negative. What it means is that a particular aspect was being met several times. You could take the view that, well, if it's being met several times, does that mean you've wasted your money on some of those and you don't need all that? But we're using it in a positive terms. It's reinforcing a message there and that. But there is slight differences between Bonus Plus and Bonus 185, but that's what you would expect. And there are some themes, like one of them, the fisheries management one, that's really only met once, but it's still quite important there. And the performance metrics, we came to the conclusion, we got a lot of information out of these, but there was still a lot more things that you could ask, and I'll come back to this and that. But, and there's always a but, there's always an elephant in the room. And it's always the bald-headed guy with glasses that's raising it. I don't know why. That there. Scientists get confused. I'm a scientist. Oh, I think I am anyway. Is publication the same as dissemination? Some may think it is. It's not. Do scientists focus on the outputs rather than the outcomes? Perhaps I should go through these now for a show of hands, but I'm not going to. And I think they do. They get hung up on outputs and that. Differences between natural and social sciences. Paulina was talking about publications in papers, and I know social scientists who, for their life's work, if they produce 2 or 3 books, that's it, rather than the 10 papers per year. Scientists focusing on the single topic, not thinking out of the box, whereas policymakers have to take bits from everywhere. There. Are the projects superseded by what member states are doing? There are some projects on how do we bring about maritime spatial planning? How do we achieve good environmental status? How do we achieve good ecological status for the different directives? Well, does that mean if you're going to achieve those, are you duplicating what your member states are doing? Do scientists give policymakers the nice to know rather than the need to know? If I'm asked about something, there's lots of things that isn't a nice to know, but actually what do you need to know to answer a question? And I guess most of my life has been trying to do the need to know. And is there a risk of over-promising and over-delivering? No. We write things in grant proposals, we use all the right jargon. No. And are we going to deliver all that there? So I then started thinking about, Paulina and I have just been discussing this, I just started thinking about who uses what information. And I suddenly realized it's a diamond shape. It's a diamond shape in terms of how much information each group uses through this list. So you start off the general public that are getting, if they get one headline, Baltic Sea polluted, it doesn't matter about the science behind it, that's what they remember. So general public that are, I saw recently that the attention span of people has reduced to 8 minutes. It was 12 minutes a decade ago. It's now 8 minutes. We have 50-minute lectures in the university, so the students are not listening for most of that time. The students get some information, they can cope with a few pages. The PhDs and early career scientists, they can cope with the detailed syntheses. And then the experienced scientists that I think Paulina was focusing on, they can cope with, they've got the peer-reviewed articles. So it's increased now to this amount. Now it's going to decrease again. The consultants produce reports by the kilogram. We've all done it, haven't we? Look at environmental impact assessments. And who's going to read those? They get paid by the kilogram, I think. There. The policy implementers, they can cope with slightly detailed ones, 50 pages. But by the time it comes to policymakers, and I deal with government ministers, if I give them anything more than 2 pages, they're not going to read it. If I give them, sometimes they want 1 page or a paragraph. And so the policymakers 2 pages, and then POTUS, the president of the US, he deals in tweets. Is this the way we're all going to go? I'm an editor of a journal that Elsevier are starting to ask for tweets for papers. Okay, let's try and finish this. More elephants in the room. Does policy development work incrementally rather than being able to cope with one piece of research? Well, of course it works incrementally. If you talk to policymakers, I used to work for an EPA, when you're making that policy or implementing the policy, you've got information that's coming from all directions, you come up with a policy. If you then are asked, which piece of research informed your policy, you probably couldn't say. And that's the difficult, and I think this is Patrice's problem earlier, it's very difficult to say that, I think, there. Would an impact statement per project benefit? In the UK, we have a national research evaluation framework where we have to write an impact statement for some research. We have to write a narrative that says, we got the grant, we did this with it, we published it this way, and here's the written evidence of how society used it. And some of those may just be supporting letters. Some of them may be an economic gain, but we're asked to do that. Would that benefit? How do you separate project dissemination from informal dissemination by researchers? Now, all of us in this room have a hinterland. That is, you will pick up information working in bonus, and then you'll go to another meeting, I know ICs or HELCOM, and you'll pass on that information, and you'll pick up information from that, and you'll move over to other areas. And that's how it works. I was a couple of years ago addressing a House of Parliament committee, and they said, well, the marine system is so complicated and there's so many organizations, it couldn't possibly work. And I said, well, it does work because of these informal links there. Are natural scientists willing to engage in societal aspects? I was at a meeting recently and someone mentioned, they were trying to say how good it was that there was a good gender balance, but they also made the point that it was actually quite good that there wasn't many grey-haired old men in the room. I think I come in that. And then they went on to say, but what we need is people to look across the natural and social sciences and look wider than their field. And we were trying to make the point that perhaps it's only the grey-haired old whatever gender who have the luxury of looking across that. Someone working on their PhD cannot look widely. They have to focus there. So there's a problem there in that. And do scientists need more training and engagement? And I think Patrice touched on this, and of course they do. So, recommendations. It would be good to look at the stronger projects. Why did they do much better at certain things? There is a need, once the project's been completed, for a retrospective assessment. But again, as was mentioned earlier, when do you do that? Do you do it after 5 years, 10 years, or so on? And that. Asking for this narrative, I think, will be incredibly valuable, but you put the onus on the scientist to give you a very objective, evidence-based narrative for this and that. Performance measures, they're valuable, but one of the things that you have to start trying to do is weight those metrics of project performance according to the stage of the project, the size of it, the nature, the reporting period. The fact that a project has got a lot of papers may just mean that it's got a lot of people involved in it, or those people have got very good societal links and therefore it's being disseminated much better. And then pre-engagement is good in that. And then the final comments. We were faced with a bit of circularity in our argument, in that if we said the projects were fulfilling a set of challenges, what that means, they are vindicating the selection panel. I'm afraid I was on one of the selection panels, vindicating the selection of the projects. So projects selected according to, are they going to give good science? If you think about it, science has to do three things. One is it has to increase knowledge. One, it has to increase wealth. And the third one is it has to contribute to the quality of life. They're the only three things that it has to do. So did it do those? And of course, yes, they did. There's significant strength in depth, and you've seen that, but the more analysis could be done. And then the stakeholder views support a strong positive impact in these areas. The application of science to policy development, the changes in funding patterns, and this was especially for the innovative aspects and the involvement of different aspects. So bonus gets a huge tick because, based on the evidence we could see, it does that. Then. So finally, a thanks to my friends in the bonus secretariat that I've known for quite a long time now. I think I remember Kaiser moving into bonus in the very early days there and that. And thanks to all the respondents. And if you didn't respond, don't complain that we didn't take your views into account. Perhaps next time. And that. Okay? Thank you. That's good.